1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue Podcast Live. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wednesday show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hello and welcome to the Royal Blue Podcast. It's the Wednesday show. It's the 2nd of July. We are live and I am your host, Ian Croll. Joining me in the Royal Blue studio today to talk all things Everton, we've got one of the Echo Sports editors, Paul Wheelock. Paul, welcome back to the pod.
Yeah, nice to be back as usual.
All
nice
good,
to be back on a busy day as well, isn't it, really?
Nice start to the morning, which we'll come on to.
Definitely made up with the news this morning.
Absolutely. We've also got the return of Tony Scott, big smile on his face there. You okay?
Yeah, all good.
Good to have you back. Can't remember last time you were on, but...
Yeah, a few weeks ago, wasn't it? Yeah. I think the fixtures had just come out. So the fixtures are now done and dusted, and now we can look at more signatures on contracts.
Yeah, going to be a busy day, going to be a busy week, I think. Which I'm sure we will get into, but there is really only one show in town. The agenda, the breaking news this morning that Jarrad Branthwaite has signed a new long-term deal with Everton Football Club. The news breaking at 10 a.m. this morning. A great way to start the morning, so we will get into that. A few other tidbits to go through. We are going to talk about Tieno Barry and Kenny Tete, Adrissa Gay and Michael Keane. So busy pod, plenty to get through. As always, give us a thumbs up, drop us a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. Get your comments in. I can see them coming in on the live stream now. Comments, questions, opinions. I will read as many out as I can. We'll go straight into it then. This morning's breaking news. Jarrad Branthwaite has committed his long-term future to Everton Football Club. The defender has signed a 5-year contract, keeping him tied down until 2030. And this is what he had to say. He said, "I'm over the moon. It's been something we've been talking about since the end of the season, and to get it signed now is something I'm really excited about. The trust the club has put in me and how many games I've played over the past 2 seasons has made it quite an easy decision for me to stay and to keep progressing as a player." Paul, I'll come to you first. Obviously came in this morning. We knew the news was going to come at 10 a.m. and drop. Just first off, your reaction.
Yeah, delighted. I know over the course of the last week, like the music's been that it was going to happen, wasn't it? I think Joe Thomas was the first person to report that they were in negotiations, and it seems to have gone really quickly. Yeah, just delighted. He's a brilliant player, and I think Joe said it as well. It's just like a statement of intent, isn't it? Really for the new owners, and just the new season at our first at the Hill Dickinson Stadium, and I think it just sets the tone really, hopefully for a really good summer, because I'm sure he was in demand. We all knew about Manchester United's interest last summer, and I know there's been talk of Tottenham coming in for him this summer after they got in the Champions League. So I'm sure he would have had offers. I'm sure if he may have even pushed for a move, he may have even got one, given the price that we would have got for him, or at least demanded for him. But for him to sign up to this new era at Everton, it's really big. Yeah, I'm absolutely delighted.
So just your reaction to it, and are you surprised that he signed the contract? Did you expect him to move on with the interest that he had, or was this always going to happen the way it's happened?
I'm not surprised, mainly because there was obviously rumours and interest from other clubs, but was the genuine interest? Were any clubs willing to pay what Everton value him? And what I say about that is that us as Evertonians, we value Jarrad Branthwaite probably a lot higher than what the rest of the Premier League do. You can only see that from the previous bids that we had last year from Man United. So, listen, it's good news for Everton. I think the Evertonian in me thinks, is there clauses in that contract? Yeah. That's just genuine, as if you go, hang on, what's going on here? But what it does, it gives us, at least if he is sold in the future, that we will get a good fee for him. And that's the biggest thing, because the worry was going into this season that he had 1 year left on his deal, which is not ideal considering.
Well, it was 2 with an option of a third, wasn't it?
So, which is not ideal considering what's happened this summer with all the players that have currently left.
Yeah.
For argument's sake, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, etc., where we could have got value for our money. We've let players' contracts run down, and that's been it. I think, in the main, I'm open that he will become a Dave Watson, a Brian LeBone. I will hope he becomes that type of figure at Everton, where you've got to win trophies and builds a proper team around as a future Everton captain. But the way football is in this day and age, without putting a bit of a dampener on it, it's very rare that a very good quality defender signs a 5-year contract at a football club and stays there for 5 years. So we're not naive enough to think that if he rips it up next season at the Bromley Moor, the Hill Dickinson's, another club will be in for him. So it's just that we're getting value now for Jarrad Branthwaite's signature rather than maybe losing him in 1 or 2 years' time for next to nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. We've safeguarded ourselves. I think you're both spot on, really. We're not naive to think Jarrad could end up leaving in 18 months, 2 years' time if he's, had another breakout season. He's been exceptional. But Paul, as I just mentioned there, he's had 2 decent seasons, maybe a couple of injuries as well. But he needs to obviously push on now and have a big season. I think the thing for me, it could have been an easy decision from both parties, from Jarrad to say, well, now's the time to go because we've lost all these players. I'm not really getting a look in the England team the next 12 months. I want to go to the World Cup. From the other side of things, Everton as well. As I mentioned on yesterday's podcast, Moyes has got quite a blank canvas with the amount of players that are leaving. It could have been an easy decision from Everton to say, well, if an offer came in worth 70, 80 million or whatever, we'll accept that offer and we'll rebuild the team. Now we know that at least within the next 12 to 18 months, we can rebuild the team even with Jarrad Branthwaite in there.
Yeah, and it's it. I say there's so much to do this summer, isn't there? Really across the squad. But probably our biggest strength last season, to give Sean Dyche's credit, and Moyes continued it in the back end of the last season, was our back four and goalkeeper. And to have Mykolenko, Branthwaite, Tarkowski once he's back fit, Pickford, and we'll see it right back. Jacob Bryan did a great job at the back end of last season. To have that kind of cornerstone already in place while there's so much work to do further forward is a big thing. And Branthwaite, as Tony rightly said, he's got everything in his locker to become an Everton great. No doubt about it. We've all watched football long enough to see that he's the real deal, this lad. But we're all probably not naive enough to realise that, I suppose, however long we keep Branthwaite will depend on how fast we can get this going, really, because, with the amount of teams we can get in the Champions League now, through finishing 5th and 6th and winning Europa Leagues and things like that, he's got to progress. I'm with you, right, completely. And he has to have a big season. He's got to kick on for his own personal development to get in the England squad, because Tuchel's made it clear even though, to be fair, I don't think Tuchel's things he's done so far are looking good at all with some of the decisions he's made, and the players he's brought back into the squad. But he needs it himself, but we need to do it as well as a club, and hopefully it can go hand in hand. But yeah, I think you're both right. I think, say if Tottenham would have come in this summer, I don't think they would have offered the 70, 75 million we all believe he could be worth, if not worth now. But without speculating, if there is a clause in the contract, you could imagine there could be. And without speculating how much it is, you'd imagine if there is, it's going to be a big price, isn't it? So I think you're right. We've safeguarded ourselves as well.
Yeah, I mean, we can come on to the clause. There's nothing being reported as of yet with regards to that.
No. There will be.
Yes, of course.
Because you think about it, in 2025, every player will have some kind of clause in a contract.
But he's protecting himself as well, isn't he?
His agent will be as well. Yeah. I think it's so easy to forget as well. It's a statement of intent from the owners as well. I think they were very good at it at Roma as well. I think I remember speaking to a Roma journalist when the Friedkins bought Everton, he said one thing they do is they protect the players that they've currently got. So previously what has happened in the past, like Mohamed Salah, etc., has all been sold and the fans are up in arms. Since the Friedkins have come in, they mainly keep their best players for as long as possible. Is it the genuine interest of the football club? And it's one thing you've got to say that you can probably imagine that the conversations that the Friedkins and David Moyes will have had is to make sure that this summer, above all things to do on your to-do list, is making sure this lad stays at all costs. Yeah. We don't care how much that comes in for him, he stays. Listen, he may get sold in 18 months' time, 2 years, but this summer he stays, and it's the intent it sends to the rest of the Premier League, because there'll be a lot of eyes on Everton this year with moving into the new stadium. And the intent that you can only imagine if you're, I don't know, a neutral Premier League supporter now going, hang on, they're going to a new stadium, they've got new owners, Moyes is staying, got a few quid to spend, and they've kept Jarrad Branthwaite for 5 years deal here. Yeah. And all of a sudden, it's the message it sends out where there would have been a lot of fans looking at it and going, a little bit of vulnerability there, going into a new stadium. Could Branthwaite be going? Calvert-Lewin's gone, Takori's gone, Ashley Young, all these players have gone. What's going to happen? All of a sudden, bang, it sends a message out to the rest of the Premier League.
Can he fulfill his potential at Everton? I mean, that's obviously an open question. We don't know what that could be, or we don't know what Everton's ceiling is at this current moment in time. It could develop and change over time. But I think I mentioned this the other week. He's obviously going to want to grow. He's obviously going to want to earn a lot of money. He's going to want to win a lot of trophies. Everton want to do all that as well. So can that go in sync? Can that go in tangent together?
Why not? You know, I don't think any one of us sitting here 12 months ago would have said Forest up until the last day of the season could get in the Champions League. And I know eventually we only got in the Conference League, didn't they, because they finished 7th. But I think we'd all snap our hands off for that finish next season, really. So we've got to be honest about it. The teams at the top, Liverpool, Arsenal, City, probably even Chelsea, they're so hard to catch now. That's going to take a very long time before I think Everton are competing for like a Premier League title, years and years. But we've shown, look at Villa the last couple of years, you know,
Newcastle.
With, you know, new owners with money, a bit like the Freaking Group. They seem to have made a lot of good decisions, made the right appointment managerial wise with Unai Emery. There are examples out there. You know, we want bigger clubs than us, bigger clubs than Everton and Forest and Villa. So I think we just got to try and kick on next season, haven't we? And if he sees that we're doing that, who knows? Who knows?
If you get 1 or 2 windows right and build a team that is on par with Jarrad Branthwaite, then I see no reason why Everton can't be a Nottingham Forest or an Aston Villa or a Newcastle by getting 1 or 2 windows right. Because if you get 1 or 2 of them wrong, you can end up like Tottenham and Man United were last season.
End up like us.
Exactly. Well, that's what we've felt the full brunt of 5 or 6 windows that have gone wrong. Whereas I can't remember the last time we had a good transfer window. Yeah. So what that does, Forest hit 1, Newcastle have hit a couple. All of a sudden, Villa, obviously, their recruiting policy is very good with Monchi behind the scenes. So I think if you get 1 or 2 windows right and build a team around the very good players that you've currently got, the sky's the limit and you can challenge these teams. Don't forget, we went to the likes of Newcastle in the last game of the season, went to Forest. All these teams were going for Champions League football and we had a patched up squad. And half the squad's no longer at the club. And it's players that were obviously seeing the contracts out, went there and comfortably beat them in their own backyard. Forest, Newcastle, for example. So we can mix it with even the squad that we had last season. So as a couple of quality additions to what Moyes is already building, it's promising.
Just going on like the captaincy. Obviously, with Coleman signing a new deal, he's the club captain, but he's probably not going to play many games. We know why that contract has been extended. Tarkowski, there could be slight doubts about his fitness coming up to pre-season and the new season. Let's obviously hope not. But if there was, that would leave the captaincy open, wouldn't it? I guess you go to, from Moyes' point of view, potentially might be Pickford, but I know a lot of managers wouldn't pick a goalkeeper. So is he someone, Paul, that you would thrust into the captaincy straight away, or is there someone else who you'd think just before I pick Branthwaite, I'd go with them?
It's Moyes.
Gay, maybe.
We ever had an Everton captain who was a keeper under Moyes before? I can't remember him. It's a good point, that, because some managers, some managers don't like keepers. Yeah. I think Pickford probably be the next in line after Tarkowski, to be honest, or maybe even just a guy, just by how if he signs a contract, given how he can tell he's really liked by the players, can't you? Like the scenes after Brighton and stuff like that last season. But again, it's just something else. You can dangle the carrot in front of Branthwaite.
Sound of a good team, that, by the way. Yeah, sound of a very good team that you can pick 3 or 4 captains.
But it's something you could say to Branthwaite. This is there for you, you know, because Tarkowski, I like Tarkowski a lot. But, you know, with O'Brien there now and Branthwaite, is his place secure? Who knows? You know, and then Coleman, as you say, won't be playing too much. Yeah. It's just a case he's not getting any younger. There could be a candidacy there, but as Tony said, there's some really experienced players there who's probably in front of him at the moment for me.
I mean, just to counter it a little bit, we've just said that Branthwaite's game is still developing. Could it become a hindrance if he was the captain as well? would it be better if he was just to focus on his game rather than having to be the sole focus of the leader at the club?
I think half the time, the way football is now in the Premier League, you don't even realise if you've got the armbands on or not.
It's just natural.
It's natural, do you know what I mean? You're either a leader or you're not. You're either a quiet guy in the changing room or you're not. It's all these things. I think once you step on that pitch, it's not, I think, gone are the days when you're seeing Steven Gerrard, a John Terry, a Tony Adams, where they were very vocal on the pitch, and Roy Keane, when they were in front of referees' faces. I think then
the good old days.
Gone. Yeah, it's like it's very rare that you see that in Premier League football this day and age. I'd probably guess that none of us know half the Premier League captains are at the moment. Because that's just the way it is.
Good quiz question.
Exactly. Yeah. We would know, do you know what I mean? Because that's just the way football is. And but I think you do have a responsibility as a captain. I fully accept what your point is. Before the game, after the game, half time.
You just naturally have to do more as a captain.
Off the pitch, yeah. And you can see what Seamus Coleman's done over the previous 5 or 6 years in terms of off the pitch, because there's been that much change that I'm sure Seamus has had plenty of conversations with players on and off the pitch, and lots of new signings have spoke highly of what that captain's role is at Everton Football. So I take the responsibility of it, but I think on the pitch it doesn't really matter, to be honest. I think it's more off it these days in terms of what's going on in a football club.
I'll just read out another one of his quotes from the piece that we did on the Liverpool Echo website. So Branthwaite went on to say, "I know the club, I feel loved by the players, we've got a good group of players here, and the fans. Over the past couple of years, I've seen the impact the fans have had on us as a team and what it means to them. Obviously with the new stadium we've got here, the new ownership and the new manager, it's an exciting project and something I want to be a part of. Moving to the new stadium together and having that first game at home is something we'll all look forward to. We want to go again and push for a good season." I mean, I guess without putting too much pressure on everything, Paul, I guess it is imperative that Everton have a good season this season. It can't be another dogged relegation battle. Even if we just kind of like go through the motions and finish like a 15th, 16th and survive with a good couple of games to go. Expectations have naturally been risen. Even the managers come out there and publicly said we need to be pushing for Europe. This is what we want to be doing, and that's what we want to be hearing. Let's face it, we know that. But I guess things have got to be delivered. And there's so much work to do, Paul. I know that in terms of transfers. But now that we've signed Branthwaite, what would you be looking at in terms of keeping him like embedded into the club?
I think you're spot on. I think Moyes has already set the tone for it, hasn't he? What he said at the end of the last game at Goodison after Southampton. Whereas 12 months ago, Sean Dyche was playing everything down, wasn't he? Like, did we have, after the points deduction, we'd have like 48 points or something like that? I forgot exactly what it was.
The worst thing for me, he was calling it a reset.
Yeah.
Wasn't he?
Yeah.
And it was like, it wasn't really a reset. It was just carrying on from the good work.
From a really good finish to
from the
season.
last 5 or 6 games.
We'll just continue to fight fires. That's
and I know, obviously, he had it harder than Moyes will do, because obviously he didn't have the ownership sorted until his final month or so in charge. But I think Moyes has already laid down like the gauntlet, hasn't he, to the new owners, to the fans. Like, we demand more. And as you say, I don't think any of us are expecting us to finish top 4 or 5 next season. But I see no reason why we can't be pushing for top 10. I think there's probably 5 or 6.
Is that good enough though for Branthwaite, you think?
I think it's got to be a bit realistic as well, because as Tony rightly says, it could change dramatically over the course of 2 or 3 windows. But let's see what this summer brings, But I think, relegation and things like that, eventually we were pretty comfortable this year, but weren't we? After Moyes got us off to that great start, and we've been pretty comfortable the last 2 seasons, even though it didn't feel like it at times. I think with everything that we've got now, it is time to kick on. Yeah, we need to be in that mix of, that kind of second tier of clubs almost, and I see no reason why we can't be.
It would have been very easy for Moyes to have said at the end of last season, right, let's find our feet at our new home and see where we go. He said, Europe, I want to be fighting for Europe. He's mentioned when he collected his MBE, he mentioned it again then when interviewed, I want to be fighting for Europe. Could have easily said top 10, bit of stability getting into the new stadium. He's raised the bar, he's raised expectations, because he knows what the fans and the current group of players he's currently got, what they can achieve together, especially with quality additions as well. Because I think he's got more of a control on signings at Everton than he probably previously had at West Ham, where he kind of fallen out of favour with the director of football at the time. So I think with his input with the current restructure at Everton Football Club with the recruitment team, I think he can add one or two more quality additions to this squad. I think he can fight for Europe next season.
Fingers crossed. I mean, we know top 10 has got to be probably the bare minimum, I guess. But another thing, Todd, was that we don't know what he's actually going to be on with this new contract, but it's going to elevate him slightly, and he is going to be well compensated, isn't he? Let's face it. Would you see him as the number one paid player at the club now, or would you see him at like 2, 3?
I think he'll be one of the highest now. Yeah. It's a 5-year deal, isn't it? Be one of the highest. I'm sure there'll be lots of permutations and.
Could you see it like going up over the years? Maybe that was in the contract.
Potentially. I think you'd probably presume that Jordan Pickford would be the highest at the club at the moment, and we'll probably speak about it just a guy shortly. But I'm sure he'll be one of the highest earners as well. And I think that's the beauty of where them the likes of just a guys. I wouldn't say got Everton where he actually wants them, but because of the amount of players that have left the football club, it kind of leaves Everton in a desperate situation for players to retain that they want to keep. So whereas just a guy probably 6 or 7 weeks ago, more or less had his mind made up that he wanted to stay, and say for argument's sake, I'm plucking figures out there on 80 grand a week. But now the likes of Decore going and all these other players that have left, he's probably thinking, hang on, sit tight. And his agent's probably going, well, hang on, let's see where Everton are lying here. And as obviously June's passed and the PSR has reset, probably sitting there going, hang on, let's try and like get a 2-year deal with an option to a third. Yeah. Why not ask for 100 grand a week? Because we know Everton are desperate for your signature. You were Everton's best player last season. You won the 2 awards. You played 35 games, called the shots. And that's where if you were in his team, that's what you'd be doing. So that's where I think he'll be one of Everton's highest paid players if he signs that deal. So I think there'll be a lot of players, but it's what you have to do to keep hold of your best players. Yeah. Your Branthwaite, your Pickfords of the world, because they are very good players, but let's have a think of it the other way, that finishing bottom half constantly. I can't remember the last time we finished above Brighton, for example, was that 5 or 6 years ago? So that's where we are. So in order to keep your best players, you need to pay them handsomely and then obviously recruit around them. And that's where Everton are lying at the moment.
And you can't reject multi-million-pound offers from, like, say, Manchester United and expect that said player to be on less money than, you know.
Make sense.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense.
But obviously the club have acted, haven't they? Let's face it, the club have acted. They've offered him a new deal, tied down to 2030. It's all positive, isn't it?
Yeah, big news.
Paul, we had a comment from Moyes in the piece as well. So he says, we're delighted Jarrad has committed his future to us. He is only 23 and his best years are hopefully ahead of him. We believe he can have a huge role in an exciting new era for Everton Football Club. The line new era seems to be getting banded around a lot over the past couple of days, certainly with this new PSR window and year and stuff like that. I mean, obviously our colleague Joe Thomas has said a number of times, having spoken to Moyes, that he wants to build his team around Branthwaite, Pickford, Tarkowski. Obviously Branthwaite is probably the main one out of that. So in a way, objective number one sorted. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's the basis for everything that we go. You need a strong spine, don't you? You need a strong base, and we've kind of got it more or less to the kind of top end. You know, we talked about the centre backs, Pickford, just a gay signs his contract. Is it going to be better? Is Tierno Barry going to come in and become that striker? So that's the one I've got question marks about. But obviously there's bits around it as well that needs to be done. But yeah, as you said, statement of intent in terms of the club's ambitions, and hopefully it sends out a statement of intent to signings as well. You know, like people like Barry or whoever the other players that we're no doubt looking at the moment to say, listen, we want you here, but we're also keeping our best players. It's not like we're going to sell Branthwaite to continue all these signings. The club clearly think that there's money to spend, and it doesn't have to be by selling players, because there's no doubt someone like Pickford's not going to go, Tarkowski's not going to go. You know, McNeil or Alcaraz we just signed, or Njai, none of those are up for sale. So it clearly shows we mean a bit of business here, don't we?
It also sends a message out to the current squad as well, because there's a lot of players there that have been at Everton for long periods of time, and they'll have seen the likes of Decore leave, Ashley Young leave, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, vastly experienced players at Everton. They've seen them leave at Everton. There's some of them going, what's going on here? Why aren't they staying? So all of a sudden, Jarrad Branthwaite, one of the star players, has signed a 5-year deal. It sends a message to the current squad as well, going, hang on, well, had second thoughts there, what was happening at the football club in terms of letting all these players go. But now we're keeping one of our best players and there's new signings coming through the door. So all of a sudden, it sends a good message out to the Goodison team as well.
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on that, so I think you're right. I wouldn't even personally use those three that you mentioned. In yesterday's pod, I mentioned, this is obviously going back a couple of years now, but Anthony Gordon was definitely considered one of our better players. He left for 35, 40 million. Richarlison left. Onana left. You know, again, they're the ones that the quality players that we had in the team, and they've all gone to, not bigger clubs necessarily, but they've gone on to probably progress their career slightly, and not with Everton.
I understand that in terms of I think players aren't soft when they're in a changing room and there's one very good player that stands out. I think they're not stupid enough to think that player will probably move on in the next 18 months. I think when you start losing big characters that are in that dressing room every single week, cheering you on, giving you words of advice, you sharing hotels, where do you sit next to on the coach, all these things, and then 3 of them 4 players leave, all of a sudden you're going, hang on, well, what's going on here at the football club? Why are these all leaving? I get what your point in terms of quality, but I think that Everton have lost a lot of experience this summer, a lot. I think partly one of the reasons why he's kept Coleman on, to be honest. It's not going to be due to his playing activities, is it? What, he played 2 games last season, 3 games? I think the season before he played 4. So it's got nothing to do with that. I think it's a massive amount of experience has left our football club this summer. Calvert-Lewin, Doucouré and Ashley Young. The amount of games that they've got under the belt, especially at Everton as well. So I think it just sends a nice message out to the current team and we're going places. Then players have moved on. They're a part of our past. Let's look ahead to the future.
I do think it's a statement, Paul, regardless of whatever way you want to look at it, whether there's a clause in there or not, and he ends up moving on 18 months, 2 years' time. When was the last player? I can't even think, so I'm not trying to put you on the spot here. We can have a little discussion about it, but I think Branthwaite's probably the first player in a long time where we've managed to sign him up to a long-term deal and keep him at the club. I genuinely can't think of someone like I say the players that we've just mentioned there. They've all just left.
It's been difficult because, let's face it, every year we've had to sell someone. And
that's what I mean.
You know, I think the situation with where we were in the league place would always left us open to danger, wasn't it? When not a bigger club, but a club who's higher up the table, who were in a better place, kind of thing, football and financial wise, who they could come in and take plays. But it's always felt like we've had to sell. Richarlison, we had to sell before 30th of June. Gordon, we had to sell before the end of the transfer window. You know, Onana, I know people had mixed opinions out of him, but he's gone to a team who've been playing in the Champions League and he seems to have done pretty well there. So it just feels like that could be the end of that. I know, as we've said today, but I don't want to see Branthwaite going anywhere. But if in 2 years' time he's an England regular, he's helped Everton battle for Europe for 2 seasons, we've gone deep into trophies, we'd love to win one, and then someone comes in and there is a release clause and it's 80 million and it's Manchester City, well, at least you're selling him from a position of strength then. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but previously it's just felt like we've had to sell all our assets just to keep the lights on almost. And it was hard. It was hard because you lose good players, you know, you're only as good as your players, aren't you? You're as good as your recruitment and the players that you've got there. And it did feel like bit by bit the team was getting dismantled. And even though I've been on this pod before, and I wouldn't say I was 100% fan of Felwell, and I think he did all right because I think he has brought in a few assets there, like Njai and O'Brien. I don't think they're at Branthwaite's level just yet, but who knows? We've got to do that. We've got to be realistic, especially in this era of PSR, really. You know, I think most clubs have got to consider selling players. So.
I think when you mentioned there, sorry, Paul, when you mentioned about like your Gordons of the world, your Richarlisons and that, but it's not just Everton that are selling their best players every single season. Brighton do it regularly, Brentford do it regularly. I think Tottenham sold Harry Kane. All these players, they sign 4 or 5 year deals, but it's very rare that they stay there for 4 or 5 years. They're sold on. United sell. Liverpool just that's to let Trent go. They're the current champions because he wouldn't sign a new deal. These things happen. It just your best players will leave football clubs. That happens. It's not just Everton.
And you're not wrong, but I will counter it a little bit. If you're going to use like Brighton, I guess, as an example, they haven't necessarily had to sell because of PSR.
Oh, of course, yeah, that's the difference.
Their model.
It's PSR, yeah,
that's
exactly,
their model. Yeah. So Everton have literally been forced to sell every single one of their best players. So you're not wrong, but we not necessarily. We don't want to be. We might have to go down the Brighton model at some point. We don't necessarily want to do that. We obviously want to keep our better players.
Well, it's not a good model to go along.
No, I'm not saying it's not, but like our chat here is that we've kept our best player, and that's a positive.
Of course, yeah, massive.
Can you imagine if the opposite had happened? We'd try and probably spin it in a positive way, wouldn't we? We'd be like, well, we sold our best player. We can rebuild.
Yeah, but we've got to
rebuild now. Exactly. So that's obviously we try and spin it as a positive, but that's the Brighton model. But I'll look at some comments here before we move on. So Terry Dactyl, I mean, there's a lot of agreement with everything that we've been saying. So Terry Dactyl says, it's a good selling point for incoming players. They can see our prize asset wants to stay. Quality players leaving is never a good sign. We've said that.
Players actually, well, I'm not being negative here, but...
Are you sure?
No, seriously, if Everton sign a player, do you seriously think they'll look at the current Premier League, the squad and go, is he staying or not? Do you seriously think that?
I do. I think there's an element to it. Surely there's got to be. If you look at a selling club, they're losing 2 or 3 of the best players. Why would you want to go there?
Why do players sign for Brighton and Brentford and all these clubs every year? They're not bothered whether...
Getting well paid.
That's the brunt of it. That's the crux of it, is that who's paying me the most? Who am I getting the biggest signing on?
Okay, it would come down to expectation. Are you going to Brighton to go and win the league, get Champions League, win a trophy?
Well, if you're selling Brighton or Brentford, we're in the top 10 constantly. You have 2 or 3 years of us, and then you can stepping stone.
Stepping stone, you're going to get well compensated, you're going to be paid well, and you're probably going to play majority of the games.
But I don't think players look at it like fans do. That's my point. I think for argument's sake, Thierry Barry, do you think he looks at it and go, Branthwaite's staying, I'll have a bit of that, I'm staying there. They don't generally look at it.
I know what you mean.
Who's paying me the most? Newcastle or Everton?
Probably doesn't even know Branthwaite is at the minute.
That's my point. So they don't generally look. I think if you're probably an English-based player, so if Everton was sort of probably, I don't know, linked with an English player who's played for Tottenham or City, say for argument's sake, McAtee, who's at, if you were signing McAtee, you'd probably look at it and go, right, well, Branthwaite's staying there, they're going places, but for a foreign guy coming from Spain, France, Belgium, wherever it may be, I don't think they'll generally look at it as like, well, they probably haven't heard of him, to be honest.
Sorry, Carl Molyneux says, bring some positivity, lads, for once in your lives. I think we are being positive.
Can't be more positive if we tried.
Surely, I think we are being positive. If it's in relation to the release clause, we're just being realistic with regards to that, surely, and it's a talking point as well. Because
we can't be sitting here in 2 years' time if he is sold and go, oh, what happened there? We were all getting giddy over a signing. It's very rare that a player will stay at a club for 5 years anyway, in this day and age. So let alone have to sign for 5 years, and especially a quality player like Jarrad Branthwaite. Listen, if he does stay here for 5 years, that would mean to me that Everton have been successful in that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Just can't leave on a free though with that 5 years. That's the point though, isn't it?
If we've won the league by then,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I'd happily take that.
It's a good shout. Let's just read out some more comments. So Mark Doyle says, Branthwaite signing protects his value, so if he does decide he wants to move to, say, a Champions League team, we can get his true value. The only issue I've got with it, Paul, is that I do think what Everton fans, all of us, value Branthwaite at, the club might have a slightly lower or different valuation. Maybe even to say more realistic. I don't know.
It's hard, isn't it? Because I know Chris has wrote many stories, hasn't he? He's quoted Maguire and Fofana deals was at 75 and 80 million. And I think, luckily, Fofana's been desperately unlucky with injuries, hasn't he? And Maguire hasn't been quite the player United hoped to be. It's a lot of money. I think, again, I don't want to look too far down the road, but I think, 75 million for the centre-back is really good money if it was that. But as you say, don't want to be negative. Like, I hope we never sell him. I hope there is no release clause. That's all that matters.
We'll quickly move on before we are accused of being even more negative.
Exactly. Yeah.
Although Danny Church has said Tony Scott would make a great Scrooge at a panto.
Lovely. I'm in the Empire from November.
That early, is it? Yeah. That's starting early, isn't it? Okay. Look, finish off. Fantastic news. Jarrad Branthwaite is signed a new contract. He's staying. He's going to be an Everton player for the foreseeable future. And fingers crossed, he pushes on, and it means Everton will push on as well. We'll move on to potential income, and then we understand Everton and Villarreal are close to an agreement on Tierno Barry, with talks now advancing. We understand that Barry wants to move to Everton with a fee being close to being agreed. Tony, we'll start with you on this one. Mainly because you've spoke at length about strikers, specifically strikers Everton should target over the past couple of weeks and months. Who obviously you want Everton to go out there and find that hidden gem, that 20-25 to goal a season striker. We know the club went in for Liam Delap. He ended up deciding to go to Chelsea. So
I'm still in mourning over that.
I know you are, I can tell. Look, we know Tierno Barry deal is close. Fingers crossed they can get over the line. I'll be honest with you, I don't know too much about him. I've seen his stats, I've seen a couple of his YouTube highlights. I don't watch the La Liga matches regularly, so I don't know too much about him. But is this a player, from your point of view, that Everton should be targeting, and have we found a hidden gem?
We don't know, do we? And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Because I think, 4 or 5 weeks ago, has anyone heard of him? Before we were linked to them? No one probably heard of him. He scored 12 goals with Villarreal. A couple of them were penalties. That's the level that we're at. And I think what this current recruitment team are doing is that I wouldn't be surprised if we sign players aged from, first team players aged from, say, 19 to 25, 26. I think that's going to be the ballpark in terms of getting your value for your money. As we've seen a lot of players leave Everton this summer. So anyone who's from that age bracket, 20 to 25, I think we'll be linked with, because they'll want sell-on value with these players. And if you think I think I read somewhere over the last, in the Moshiri era, Everton signed 10 players over 20 million and never received a penny for. And they all seen the contract out.
Yeah.
Obviously, you only have to mention the Cenk Tosuns of the world, Theo Walcott's. There's about 10 of them that did sign, so they got no sell-on value whatsoever. So hence why the PSR issues that evolved around Everton, which led us to a points deduction. So we don't want that happening again. So in order for that not to happen again and repeat itself, we need to sign young players. So if it does go pear-shaped with a signing, that you're going to get some money back for them. So no one was willing to buy Walcott and Tosin at the time because the ridiculous money they were on, the length of the contract and the money we bought them for. Whereas in Barry, he's young, he's proven himself in Spain. So if it doesn't work out, I'm sure there'll be a club that would be willing to say, do you know what, say for example, we buy him for 30 million. If it doesn't work out in the next 18 months, 2 years for him, we can still get money back for him. And that's the key thing here. And that's probably why we were all over Delap at the same time as well. It's an value for your money, and that's more important than what Everton do this summer is get value for your money because of the situation that's happened with the past. So you can see why Everton have been linked with this type of player. Also, it's kind of the level where we're at. We're not a Champions League club. We're not even a mid-table club. We're just below that barrier. So we can't sign the next Isak, but what we can try and do is find the next one. And if he's that player, then so be it. We can nurture him to become that type of player. That's the bracket that we're at. Hopefully, it's an hidden gem that Moyes and the recruitment team have been tracking for long periods of time, and he can bang his goals in next season at the Hill Dickinson.
Paul, I mean, the general consensus is that Barry is raw, huge potential with hopefully a big upside. We don't know exactly what the fee is, but we know his release clause is roughly around 40 million euros, and Everton want to or of trying to negotiate that down and hopefully seemingly being successful. So just your thoughts on it, really?
We need a forward without question. I was so impressed by what Beto did at the back end of this last season. And even though the goals dried up a little bit at times, I thought his all-round hold-up play was massively improved kind of thing. So yeah. I've got no issue with Beto. If he's not first choice, certainly being second choice. I've got no issue with being one of our front men next season. But we need more up there. I've got to be honest. I've not watched loads of Barry in action, but what I've read about him, he seems to have stepped up at each level of his career, and 11 goals in the La Liga is not bad going at all. He seems like a big lad. Like we know, like Moyes likes centre forwards with a bit of stature. He feels like he's got a bit of pace. The goals are seen. Looks like he can do a bit of everything. He can be in the box. He can be outside the box. So he looks like he's got a good bit of variety to his game. But it is that huge step up, isn't it? Not from the La Liga is a fantastic standard of football, but the Premier League's just a different type of football. And I think I was with you, Tony. Delap, I know he wasn't too good when he came to Goodison at the back end of the season. I know he didn't make himself too popular for that bit of a bust-up he had with Branthwaite, but that surely had a bit about him.
Yeah.
And I think he would have just hit the ground running, wouldn't he? And it's hard. It's really hard.
May get him in January,
well, if they're buying Calvert-Lewin as well, you know, like Chelsea's just ridiculous, aren't they?
Yeah.
How many forwards they're signing? I think Matt said on Twitter, didn't he, goes, look forward to Delap coming in next summer.
Definitely.
But it could happen, but it's hard. It's hard with forwards, isn't it? Because like as Isak, this Gyökeres, the top ones are going to cost 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 million. And as Tony rightly says, we're not shopping in that market. So it's not a gamble as such, but hopefully he's a player the recruitment departments have been looking at for a long time. And yeah, we need a forward, don't we? We can't go in with just Beto and Chimiti, because for my money, I think Chimiti needs to go out on loan, to be honest. I think he needs football. So we've got to go with it. We're going to have to make so many signings this summer. There's going to be a certain gamble with all of them, isn't there? If we were only making 2 or 3, you could really identify. But I think there's a few we're going to have to take a bit
I mean, if Chimiti was to go out on loan now, you would have thought we'd need another striker as well.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Don't forget Calvert-Lewin's gone.
Yeah.
As well.
I haven't forgot.
So that was on top of what we couldn't be left with as well. So I think there's 2 ways to look at this. When a player like, say for example, with this particular signing, I look at it and go, right, if he's played all season in Spain, why aren't the other clubs in for him in Spain?
Can I just jump in? Because it's a good point, and Mark Foster, let me find the question. I thought about this the other day.
But part of me thinks that, well, why, when Bellingham left Birmingham to sign for Dortmund, could have been the other way around. Why weren't the other English clubs willing to take keep Bellingham?
Yeah,
it's like you could look at it the other way, do you know what I mean, quite easily.
Mark Foster says, is anyone concerned that no other teams are interested for Barry? I mean, that they might have been. They might have been. Is that a red flag that it's seemingly, I'm going to say this with an air of caution, it seems to be an easy, straightforward process that this is just going to go through, and we're not going to get gazumped, I guess.
Do you ever see in modern day football now? I think obviously it's well documented on social media and obviously the media side of it, but it's very rare you see an auction between players now. I think it's all done behind the scenes where, right, we know what that club's willing to pay for him because we've just spoken to them ourselves. So I think that's already done and dusted. Yeah. I think there's a lot more gets put out in the open air now where you're all over it on social media, or if obviously agents are well aware of it as well. So I think agents will go, well, we know that Everton want him, and we can sort a deal out there and then, so we can move on. Because agents have got that many players under their umbrella that they want to move on to the next one, move the next one, and move the next one. So they want to get as many deals done as possible. But I think a good point of is that, listen, to play in the French under-21 squad, you've got to be a decent player, surely, to get to that standard, because we know how good French football is at the moment with the international team, with PSG. They're a very good. They're bringing some very good players through. So to be playing up front in a French under-21 team and banging goals in Spain, you must have something about you. You really do.
Yeah, and I know he didn't play every single game for Villarreal, but he played, a fair few, and they finished 5th. It's not like they're fighting at the bottom of the table.
No, exactly. Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, obviously, Beto was kind of come to prominence a little bit over the back end of the season. Whether Tony will agree with that, I don't know. But what are we looking at here? Is he going to come in as a partnership alongside Beto? Because we know Beto struggled to play in a 4-4-2, certainly alongside Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Does he come in as the lone striker? Does he play off the wing? Is he a second striker / I don't know, number 10? It's difficult to say because we don't know too much about him. But it is intriguing as to see how he's going to fit into the team with Beto there.
Yeah, just judging how Moyes has played for a number of years with us previously and at West Ham, he likes a lone forward, doesn't he, with players off them. So I can't imagine we'll swap to a 4-4-2. I don't know enough about Barry to suggest could he go on to the right or the left. Could he play wide? I'm not sure. And your question about Beto, I'm not 100% convinced yet, to be honest, with Beto. I think he's earned his spot in the squad.
I think it's fair enough,
he's earned his spot in a future at Everton now. Whereas I think for a long time last season, I think most would have sold him when he started getting links with Leeds, but now I wouldn't. But as you say, it goes back to the lap. They're hard to get ready-made Premier League centre forwards in our position. So I think Barry, if they think, but it's a good thing in a way, we were linked with Voltemade, is that how you say him, lad? And he's just gone to Bayern Munich and he's just had a great European under-21 championship. And to be fair, I know there's a lot of change in terms of since Felwell's gone and a couple other people have gone in that department. I mean, imagine targets have been in place for a number of months and years kind of thing. And we have missed out on some good players in recent seasons who've gone on to have good people like Kudus at West Ham, for instance. So I think we should maybe have a bit of faith in this one kind of thing. If they think he's got something, I say his record's really good for a young lad, and he's playing internationally under 21s. If he ever gets into that French squad, it shows how good a player he is, because they've got 7 or 8 world class forwards at the moment, haven't they? So yeah, it's exciting, isn't it, to be able to go out and maybe spend £30 million on a forward, because we've not done that. I know Better was probably 20s, but it feels like, again, another bit of a statement really about where we're at now.
Absolutely. I mean, just going back to the red flag with regards to any other teams interested in him, I just think you're right. I think like he would have been on other clubs' radars, but a deal has seemingly been done, and he wants to come to the club, and anyone else has been put off. Don't get me wrong, you can get gazumped by clubs if they really want to come in and they really want to spend that money, but hopefully he's the hidden gem that Everton, crave.
And because it's not a name that everyone's aware, it doesn't make him a bad or a good signing. I think there's a lot of clamour in this day and age, and I think Arsenal fans are probably the worst for it, in terms of like they just want this star centre forward. So say for argument's sake, Barry was obviously a really good player and playing for Villarreal and costing 20-30 million. I think the likes of Arsenal, we want Gyökeres for 80-90 million. Yeah. We want the name, do you know what I mean?
But it's like the Liam Delap situation now as well, isn't it?
Because the name just doesn't suit, or it's not value for money, or whatever it may be. Sometimes these are the best signings that David Moyes makes at a football club. The ones that you're spending 50-60 million pounds on. Look for Liverpool, for example, last season, 2 seasons ago, Darwin Núñez, 80 million. They don't work out because obviously the value for money is not there. So you can... I think with this one, it's a good signing if we get it over the line, and if it's not, doesn't work out, you've got sell-on value. And I can't emphasise that enough, that the players that we bring in have got to have sell-on value. We cannot be going through the 5 years of hell we've just gone through by going through PSR issues, points deductions, and letting players leave for nothing after signing for the club for 20-30 million pounds and seeing out the 5-year deals at the football club. That cannot happen no more, or we'll be back into this position in 5 years' time. We need sell-on values with young potential players with a point to prove. That's what I want to see at Everton this season in the summer in terms of recruitment. Young, hungry, point to prove, ambitious. There's a perfect football club playing at the River Mersey for you.
Just to finish off on Barry, Paul, I do find it interesting because we know how much value Moyes puts in Premier League experience, and quite clearly Tino Barry doesn't have that. I mean, when he first came back in January, the first player that we signed, albeit on loan, was Carlos Alcaraz. Premier League experience, he was in straight away. So it's a difficult one, because how do you find that balance of finding someone with Premier League experience from a striker's point of view who's going to score you a load of goals? When you think about it like that, you're going to have to spend a load of money. You're probably going to have to spend 50-60 million. I mean, look at like Dominic Solanke as an example. That's what Tottenham had to spend. So I guess the only negative, I'm not being negative, everyone, is that he just doesn't have Premier League experience. So it might take him a little bit of time to get up and running in that respect. Yeah,
and it's hard, isn't it? Because not only, as we've said on this pod, we're in where we are as a club, in terms of the league placing at the moment. It's the amount of business that we have to do this year, this summer. If it was only 2 or 3 signings, maybe you could, I'm not saying Brian Mbeumo would come here, but you could make a pitch for him, couldn't you? I know he's not a centre forward, but you could make a pitch for him if you had 70-80 million to spend and you only need 2 or 3 players. I know the Freaking Group and this big PSR year one, which was like 80-90 million's gone off the books, hasn't it? So we have obviously got a bit of like freedom to do things, but I just don't think we can throw all our eggs in one basket, because we need 1 or 2 centre midfielders. We definitely need a right winger, and then there's the other little positions about backup left backs, backup goalkeepers. There's just so much to do, and I just don't think we'll get it all done this summer.
I think we'll see maybe 3 or 4 signings spent with like good cash, and what I mean by good cash is like 20, 30, 40 million. I think you'll probably see the centre forward. I think we may even see another centre forward, a right winger, and maybe a centre midfielder. I think they'll be the key positions that Everton need to improve on. I think the other ones will look after itself with loans, maybe a right back on a free transfer, maybe a left back up on a free transfer. Don't forget, you've got like all the loans that Everton took upon, apart from Alcaraz, all went back. Mangala, Lindstrom, Harrison, Brozier, all 4 went back.
They didn't work out, did they?
They didn't work out, and don't get me going on the recruitment and that side of it, but in terms of this side, at least you've got 4 loans there to work with, to beef up your squad. Do you know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, loans are still going to cost money. They're still going to cost 2 or 3, 4 million, which you've been banging the drum about for a long period of time. Use your loan market as well. That's one thing we've just left wayward over the past couple of years, and it kind of winds me up because how good Everton were in that loan market when David Moyes was first here, with the likes of Landon Donovan, Stephen Pienaar, for example. All these players we brought in on loan straight away and became really good signings for Everton.
I think as well, just searching some of these players here. So you mentioned Mbeumo. What have Brentford rejected from United for him? 60 odd million. Premier League experience. You've got Semenyo from Bournemouth. If anyone comes in for him, there's been touted as 60, 70 million Premier League experience. Eze from Palace, again, 60, he's been touted as 60 million. Now, I know some of them aren't like out and out strikers. They can play across the front three, to respect, but they've all got Premier League experience, and the premium on top of that is double of what we're obviously
Look
paying
at the
for
age
Barry.
of them players. They're all around the 27, 28 bracket.
In the prime, though,
exactly.
as well.
Of course, they're in the prime. So you're buying proven. That's why you're paying that premium. You're buying for proven Premier League quality there. Whereas in Barry, young, not proven. So that's why it lessens. It's halved in price. That's the gamble that you're having to make, and that's the market we're in.
I mean, you say proven Premier League quality, and you're not wrong, but if Everton are paying 60, 70 million for a striker, I want 40 goals a season, never mind 20. We would, though, wouldn't we? To get value for money.
But as just touched on there, Liverpool paid 80 for Nunes, and has he got 15, 20 this season? Sometimes, because of the amount you spend on a player, doesn't guarantee goals.
No, absolutely
it doesn't.
not. It's just, it raises expectation.
It also does, and it makes fans, as I just touched on with the Arsenal fans, they want this big centre forward who's going to cost a lot of money. They probably could end up with Ollie Watkins. Do you know what I mean? So that's the going rate at the moment in terms of, I'd rather take a chance on these type of signings where we're at now, 20, 21 years of age, 20 or 30 million, and if it goes wrong, you can sell back rather than pay 60, 70 million for a Solanke or a Bueno, have no sell-on value because they're out 28, 29. And then it could end up where just sees his contract out. And that's the reason why Manchester United is in the position that they're in at the moment. They've got a lot of players on big contracts that they can't get out the door, i.e. Marcus Rashford. All these players, they've got like 5 or 6 year contracts, and they're willing to sell for next to nothing just to get them out the door.
Yeah. And Rashford's not going to reduce his wages, is he?
No chance, would you?
No.
There you go.
Paul, we've just had a piece going up on the Liverpool Echo website from Matt Jones. So Idrissa Gueye and Michael Keane are set to commit their future to Everton. More positive news. I mean, what a positive podcast this is.
I am absolutely, obviously, fine with Idrissa Gueye, and I'm absolutely fine with Michael Keane. Like, I think I've said on this podcast before, I think he's kind of like a player who, I think he's a fairly solid Premier League performer, but he's always at the scene of the crime kind of thing sometimes. But we can't forget he scored some very, very big goals for us as well. Again, it all comes back to there's so much to do. If you've got a third, fourth choice centre-back who's fairly dependable, yeah, he does have an error in him, but we kind of know what he's got. I'm happy with it. If he gets a 2-year deal, it's just one less thing to do this season. I've got no major issues with it. And it's just a guy, as Tony was saying earlier, the ball's early in his court, isn't it? Because we've not got many midfielders, like James Garner, Timber Labunum, that's it, isn't it? Apart from him. Harrison, but who knows?
Alcaraz.
Yeah, whether
he can play there as well. He can play there, can't he, Alcaraz?
But you couldn't imagine losing him this summer. And he's getting no younger, obviously, but last season he was probably maybe his best ever season at Everton across 2 spells. Maybe the one when he was with Gomez in midfield, but I thought he was absolutely tremendous last year, Guy. So to me, we've just got to get that one done. We've got to get that one done. So yeah, I think it's positive because remember we've only got 14 players currently. Right. We need to add some. We need to add some, and I'm fine with both of those.
Might be able to field the team against Accrington in 2 weeks.
Expect a couple of the youth teams to play. I mean, so we all wanted Gay to sign. We kind of expected it a little bit. I guess Michael Keane is maybe a bit of a surprise considering how his contract's been left to run down. Polarise his opinion. I don't care what anyone says, but he's been used a fair bit, certainly because of injuries and suspensions this past 12 months. So it does look like he's set to sign. For me, this is not really a negative aimed at Michael Keane, but it's almost like a box ticked. We've got that, fourth choice centre back, and without a doubt, it's going to be used. That fourth choice is going to be used over the season,
especially when Everton, that's so relying on the defenders as well, because you're going to pick up injuries. You've seen Tarkowski, Branthwaite, Mikalenko picks up injuries as well. So I I think that when you speak about Michael Keane in this obviously current situation to Evertonians, you're either one or the other completely. Now, I'm guessing from the feeling in this room that we're like, for choice all day long, great Premier League. Well, I wouldn't say great Premier League player, sorry. He's a okay Premier League player. So for a 4th choice centre-back, happy days, I'll take that on a year contract. Or if you speak to another Everton, they go, have my eyes deceived me here? Have you not watched the last 5 years of Michael Keane playing for Everton? Where he's given numerous penalties away, where he's just left found wanting in defence, where he's cost Everton goals. So what are we doing, giving him another year contract? Can't we go and scout another player who's better than Michael Keane? That's how bad we are. So you'll just meet the 2 sets of Everton fans at the moment, where you know at Michael Keane. One thinks he shouldn't play for Everton again. One thinks he'll do a job for us. That is where we're at the moment. Yeah. For my opinion, I think it's a good 4th choice centre-back to have. And that is it. I wouldn't be begging him to stay. But Everton are probably in a position where they're kind of having to go out and pay a little bit extra for the likes of just a guy. And what I mean by that is in terms of his wages as well. Because I think they've probably stepped back in the summer and they've gone, well, we've let all these players go here. We thought Don might have stayed. We thought Ashley Young may have stayed. We thought Abdoulaye Doucouré may have stayed. All these players, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but they've all gone. They've all gone. It's only Seamus Coleman that's left. And he's not going to be playing many games for Everton next season. So I think they've probably gambled a little bit Everton there and it's kind of backfired. So they're having to go to the likes of Michael Keane and try and get him on a year's contract, maybe even 2, if you're Michael Keane. So, and I keep on saying this, I was having a conversation with my dad yesterday in terms of like, I made up Calvert-Lewin's gone because my dad, he couldn't stand Calvert-Lewin. We had many a conversation. I was going to say,
those conversations must have been fun.
Oh, they were great, honestly. My mum would have to and go, stop arguing about football in the house. And
get him on the pod.
Oh, it was chaos. Anyway, so we got to the point, and my dad, made up, he's gone. I went, okay, so it's going to cost us 30 million to replace. Whichever way you dress up, the qualities of Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he's going to cost us money to replace. The same as Michael Keane. So if Michael Keane goes, well, it's going to cost us money to replace. Doesn't matter if it's a loan or a sign, it's going to cost us money unless we can get a free transfer. Now, there's not many players out there for a 4th choice centre-back on a free transfer, is there? Hence why we're having to keep Michael Keane.
It just depends what you're looking at. If we don't go for Keane and he doesn't sign, do you go for, again, an experienced head in the mould of Keane, or do you go for a young, inexperienced centre-back?
Whichever way, it's going to cost money. So that's the...
Well, Keane's
I'd rather
still
keep
going to
our
cost
money.
isn't he?
So I'd rather, what we touched on there, Paul, I'd rather keep our cash signings, if that kind of makes sense, for the right winger, for the centre forward, for the central midfielder, fit for the big players that we need in this team. And then you can beef up the squad with loans, free transfers, with maybe a right back or a centre back. I'd rather keep them for them types of signings and make sure the key ones are the centre forward and the right wing and the centre midfielder. Yeah,
I mean, final point of the pod then, we'll because we're coming up to the hour now. So just on Tony's point there, I'll move it on to Kenny Tete, who's basically confirmed that he's staying at Fulham. I think what Tony's kind of saying, I completely agree with. Kenny Tete was seen as someone who could come in and do a job. Premier League experience again. Okay, his injury record didn't seem to be great, but he could probably do a job for 20, 25 games a season, and then who knows whether it would be Jake O'Brien who would fill in, or we would even get another right back. But either way, he's not coming to Everton. Paul, he's re-signed with Fulham. But I guess, is it a blow to you based on kind of what Tony was saying, where Premier League experienced defender on a free? It seemed quite a sensible decision, but it's not happening.
Yeah, I do think it's a bit of a blow because I like him. Whenever I've seen him, I think he's a really good one-on-one defender. He looks really solid. When he played Liverpool at the back end of last season, he's just one of those players where I've watched him over the years and thought he's decent. And then I think the telling thing was the Fulham comments after Fabrizio Romano had said he was coming to us, wasn't he? Or he nearly agreed the deal. They were gutted. They were absolutely gutted. And again, the red flag was probably his injury record, but as you say, if you're playing 26, 27 games a season, that's still not too bad. And funnily enough, right back, Seamus, I don't think we'll be able to call on him as much, but we've got Jake O'Brien, who knows what's going to happen with Patterson. We've actually got strength and depth there, but I think we need an out-and-out right back. Yeah. You know, someone, how long have we been saying this for? We've been saying it for years, haven't we? So I do think it's a bit of a blow. But you know what? His agents, we've talked about agents on this pod today, they've probably used Everton a little bit to their advantage.
Yeah, Fulham
weren't offering what Everton were offering at that point. it's gone out on social media. It's gone out through Romano with his millions and millions of followers. All Fulham fans are up in arms, going, "What's going on here?" And he's worked it well. You know, he's earned his money, the agents, hasn't he? Because he's got what he wanted for his clients at Fulham. And you know, I know we've had a little clip on this podcast about Everton, Fulham size of clubs. I'm not going in Chris Beasley's shoes today, but you know what? He's probably happy at Fulham, isn't he? He's been playing there, and that's what he may have wanted all the time. And it's gone now, though. We've got to move on, haven't we? Go for someone else.
Well, that's the point. So I guess the point is that we are going to have to move on. Is there another three out there? We were discussing before we came on. Obviously, Kyle Walker-Peters. I don't know. We don't think Kyle Walker's on a free, is he? But you know, you'd be able to negotiate a low fee for him if he were going to come in. Paul, you did an article yesterday to say that you would gazump Besiktas, who apparently was close to joining. It might mean now that, based on what you were saying, that we might have to go out and spend money on a right back rather than get that right back for free.
Yeah, and that's the problem in it, because I think reading between the lines, I don't think David Moyes is a fan of Nathan Patterson either. So I think we'll probably see a new right back in at the football club, even though we've obviously kept James Coleman. Jacob Bryan can play there, so I wouldn't be surprised if Everton do use some of their cash to go and get, even though I'm probably contradicting myself there, because there's that many positions that we need to improve on. We need a left back as well. We definitely need a left back. We want someone to challenge Mykolenko. I like Mykolenko, but is he going to get I don't know, 5 or 6, 7 assists like most left backs do? Does Mykolenko get in any of the top 10 sides? No, he doesn't. So we need an improvement in that area. There's going to be so many permutations in terms of where we're spending our cash and where we're getting loan signings. So I wouldn't be surprised if Everton try and buy a player at right back or get a loan, or use the free market as well. So there's going to be loads of interesting angles, and I'm sure obviously David Moyes having plenty of conversations behind the scenes in terms of like where we're spending our money. But I wouldn't be surprised if where we are spending it is on the particular signs where we lack so desperately last season in terms of like from an attacking third. We're okay as a back four, pretty rigid from a centre midfield. I'm still after that big centre midfield. I'm hoping Addison Armstrong is that. I was a big fan of his last pre-season, really was. I think he's got the potential to become a really, really good player for Everton. We've seen lots of signs of him working hard this pre-season after the successful spell off Derby last season. I like the look of him. And I'm just hoping he can fulfil his potential, because I think he's got a lot to offer. And I think David Moyes will be pleasantly surprised as well, because when you see players come through the academy, sometimes you look at them and you think, can they do it in the Premier League? Because they just don't look big enough and ready. I look at the under-21s, for example, for England, even though they've just won, obviously, the Euros, and you go, there's not many players there that look like big athletes that can play 35, 36 games a season. Who's there? Elliott, for example. Now, Elliott of Liverpool are willing to let him go. He looks like a 5-a-side player. I think there's lots of players like that. They look like really good, technically good players, but whether they've got the attributes and the physique to play in the Premier League. Whereas I look at Harrison Armstrong, he's built like a giant. He's a big lad that can play in that centre midfield role. So I think that's the big difference there, where the landscape lies in terms of academy players. They're coming through, but I don't think they've got the physique to carry on playing in the Premier League. Hence why obviously Elliott's probably going to get moved on. There's a lot of players in that similar ilk. So I'm hoping that Armstrong, coming from the academy, will save Everton a lot of money, that he can rip it up in the pre-season. David Moyes will be surprised by how good he is and implement him with the first team at the new stadium. Be good to see, wouldn't it? Scouse lads in the Everton centre midfield at the Hill Dickinson.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts then before we finish off? Good to see some Everton branding on the new stadium yesterday.
It went past it this morning.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. In black, but I'm sure we'll see loads more logos.
I haven't been past it, so I only saw one photo. Is it just on?
It's on one right-hand side. So if you're going past the stadium, going into Liverpool City Centre, it's on the right. Yeah. On the right-hand side. So
the north stand, closest to the north stand.
Facing the Mersey.
Oh,
that kind of makes sense. So you've got the Merseyside. So it is the South Stand, the big one, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's the one. So getting confused where I am here. On the Bramley-Moore pub side, that's where it's at.
So it's the east stand, closer to the north.
Close, that's where it's at.
Okay. Well, we haven't got far. We haven't got long now until the Roma game, have we? So
4 weeks, is it?
Yeah.
4 weeks.
Any final thoughts, Paul?
No, just been a really positive podcast.
I think it has been a positive podcast.
Did you write the comments?
All right, well, that is all for today's show. Please remember to give us a like and subscribe to the channel. Drop us some 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify. Most importantly, enjoy the rest of your day. I've literally just remembered, I've got to say that this is the last podcast of the week because I am off now until next week. So the next podcast after today is Tuesday, the 8th of July. So apologies that there's not a third show this week. You just haven't got the staff to do it, but there will be 3 shows next week, Tuesday, Wednesday and Friday. And Paul, you're going to be on the Tuesday one, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm coming in for that one.
I'm auditioning for Scrooge.
Are you?
I've got my
I thought you'd already got that job.
Gotta go through my script.
The Wednesday show, by the way, Conor O'Neill's going to come out of hiding after what he said the
What
other
did he
day
say
about
again?
Conor Flynn. I've got to repeat it. Did you not see it?
No.
Calvert-Lewin's the second best England striker behind Harry Kane when he's fit and firing.
I like Calvert-Lewin on fit, but some statement that from Conor. I'll have to have words with him. Is he in?
Not in the
No,
office
we don't
today.
think
No, I
today.
think he's off.
All right.
Maybe you can come on the pod next week if you want.
Good debate.
Yeah, that's the 9th, Wednesday the 9th. We might find out about whether the Brighton game gets moved or stays
do on that date.
day.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
provisionally.
Around there, yeah.
So
Big pressure.
yeah, big pressure. Been trying not to think about it, to be honest. All right. Thanks for joining, everyone. I've been Ian Croll, joined by Paul Wheelock and Tony Scott, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.